Hi, Emerson. So today we're going to do a lesson about taxes. Strange lesson, but that's what it's all about. And I'll start this off with a question, which I've kind of already given away the answer. And the question is, what killed the Silk Road? It lasted for over 1,000 years. It was the greatest trade route in the history of land trade, land travel, all the way from China to Europe. And, people were moving all these goods all across Asia into Europe and from Europe into Asia. What killed it? Well, what killed it was the high taxes of the Ottoman Empire around the area of Istanbul or Constantinople. Right there where Asia meets up with Europe, there's this little bit of water that separates Europe from Asia right there. I think it's called the Bosphorus Strait, and boats would have to carry goods back and forth across this thing, where the Black Sea empties into the Mediterranean Sea. Anyway, it's not a very long passage, but to get across this thing, obviously, all the goods had to be loaded off of the wagons and stuff they were transported onto boats. And the Ottoman Empire saw a great opportunity to tax these goods that were being moved from one place to another. And they started with small taxes, things called tolls. A toll is a charge to cross over a passage or to go on a road. There's toll roads and toll bridges. We have them all over America, these toll roads and bridges. It's a small fee you have to pay every time you go across. Well, they charge these kind of fees, but they also charge something called a customs fee. I'm putting these words up on the screen for you. Customs fee. A customs fee is to transport a certain kind of good from one country to another. You have to pay a certain percentage of what it's worth. So let's say that I had some silk fabric that was worth $100. And as I crossed through this strait, the Bosphorus Strait, and loaded the goods from the wagons onto the boat to go across, if the tax collector there, the customs tax collector, had a 5% tax on that silk cloth, how much would I have to pay? 5% tax on $100. Well, that would be $5. It's 5% of 100 is 5. If it was a $200 bundle of fabric, it would be $10. Do you follow me? If it was a $300 bundle of fabric, it would be $15. If it was $400 worth of fabric, it would be $20. That's 5% customs tax. Well, this tax was applied to all the goods that moved through this area of Constantinople. And they raised it higher and higher and higher, starting off very, very low, then moving it up a little bit at a time, because why not? Every single time they charged the tolls and the customs fees on the movement of these goods, they made money for nothing. They didn't have to do anything to get it except put their hand out. Oh, I got a Band-Aid. Put their hand out and they just collect the money. Well, you can think about it. If you were a trader who was moving goods from China to Europe and you were paying these tolls and these customs fees, if it started off at $1 for every $100 in fabric, if it started off at 1%, it's like, well, it's no big deal. I'll pay $1. Fine. It's not that much for every $100 to pay $1 maybe. But then they rose it to 2%, and you have to pay $2 for every $100 worth of stuff. Then they rose it to 3%. Now you got to pay $3. Well, now it's starting to turn into a lot of money. If you have $1,000 worth of stuff, it turns into quite a bit of money. Then they raise it to 4%, and then 5%. Well, finally the traders got to the point where it was taking so much of their money, because think about it, they have to pay for food for their horses to pull the wagons. They have to pay for places to spend the night, for their own food, and they have to support their families at the end of the year or whatever it would take them to make this journey all the way from Europe to China and back. If you have to pay all this money on these tolls and these customs fees, eventually it eats so much of your profit that it doesn't make any sense to continue, because all your profit is going after a while to support yourself and to feed your animals and to feed your workers and to pay everybody and to pay these high taxes. And finally, people got fed up with it. And in the year 1453, after this Silk Road had been going for thousands of years, finally, they raised the taxes up so high that most of the traders basically threw up their hands and quit. And they decided to start finding other ways to transport silk goods from China to Europe and goods from Europe back to China. And how did they go about that? What did they do to get around this problem of all these high taxes on the Silk Road? Well, there was a lot of advances in sailing ships at that time, and they started to explore to find a way to sail all the way down the Atlantic Ocean to the Cape of Africa, all the way at the bottom of Africa, down there around, Cape Horn, I believe is what it's called. Maybe. Or is it the Cape of Good Hope? I can't remember. There's two capes. There's one on the bottom of South America and there's one on the bottom of Africa, but I think it's called Cape Horn. Anyway, and they would sail all the way around that and then all the way through the Indian Ocean, all the way to China. And it was more costly to travel after a while to transport goods by the Silk Road by land than it was to put them on ships and sail all the way around Africa. And so basically that ended up killing the trade route of the Silk Road. It was over. The taxes were so high that it made more sense for the traders to load all of their stuff onto the ships and sail around Africa than it did to go over the Silk Road with the wagons. And you know, it's interesting, before we quit this video, are there any other examples in history when high taxes have killed off an entire industry? And the example is absolutely yes. High taxes kill business when they get to a certain point. There's an example of back in England in the 1700s and early 1800s. One of the most absurd examples of high taxes was called the soap tax. They put a very, very high tax on soap because they consider it to be kind of a luxury item. What's a luxury item? A luxury item is something you don't really need to survive. You know, you can wash your hands with water and a towel. So they put a very, very high tax on soap so that only people who had a lot of money could afford it. Can you believe it? For over 100 years, there was such a high tax on soap in England that most people could not afford it. And they had to, for over 100 years, had to wash their hands with water and rags and no soap, unless they could figure out how to make soap at home. Everybody was going around smelling bad for over 100 years because of high taxes. Unbelievable. There's been countless examples of this in history, of high taxes making life miserable and dysfunctional for the population. There's one that's happening in America right now, a very good example. Then I'm going to be done. And that is the taxes in California have destroyed Hollywood. Do you know what Hollywood is? I'll put up the sign. There's this big sign on the hills outside of Los Angeles, California, above a little city called Hollywood. And this was the birthplace, basically, of the film industry back in the early 1900s, they did not have movies yet. And eventually somebody figured out how to make film. They took photographs and lined them up on a long strip and ran them through a projector and created things called movies. It was basically moving picture shows. And Hollywood was where a lot of this early filmmaking was done. And it became a huge industry in California. People couldn't wait to go to California to get into the movies. People moved from all over the world to come to California to get into the movies. Like, for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger came to America primarily not so much to get into bodybuilding. That was a big part of it, but eventually his whole vision was to become a movie star, and he did. Now, Hollywood movies are basically non-existent, meaning that it's completely shut down. Most filmmaking, most TV shows, most movies, most commercials that are advertised products are filmed and produced outside of California. Why? Because of high taxes. There's other problems too, but the high taxes are one of the main reasons. The high taxes in California have killed off the entire business of making TV shows and movies and commercials in Hollywood, California. It's kind of a tragedy. It opens up opportunities for other people in other areas of the world to do this business, but a lot of people depended on that business. It was a dream for a lot of people to go to California and get into the movies. It's gone. It's dead. It's over. Just like the Silk Road. It'll never come back. Why? High taxes. Listen, there's nothing wrong inherently with taxes, because we have to have taxes to build roads and to put in sewer pipes and water systems and make the water safe and have safe processing of all the sewer water and stuff, all the poop and the pee. Who's going to deal with that? Well, they have to charge taxes so that they can build facilities to deal with all this stuff. Also, for education, for bridges. The only way these things get done, to build schools and bridges and roads and sewer system and put in public water systems, is you have to have taxes to pay for all this stuff. But it gets to the point where the taxes are so much and they spend money on absolutely stupid projects that don't make sense, that eventually it kills off business. It kills off business if the taxes become too high and the businesses go someplace else, or the people move away because they don't want to deal with it anymore. It's too much of a burden to pay all that tax. What's a burden? It's like a load that you're carrying on your back. That's what taxes are. They're a burden that the population pays in order to have services like bridges and roads and schools and, have the mail delivered on time and all these kind of things. And to have police and firemen and things like that. You have to have taxes. But they become so high at some point that the people can't pay anymore. Do you know, and then I'm going to quit the video, that the average person in America at this point in our history, the average person in their lifetime pays over $500,000 in taxes in their life. That's just the average person, not someone who has a lot of money. What do they pay it for? There's taxes on the gasoline, the benzene that you pump into your car is taxed. There's taxes to rent a hotel room. There's taxes to buy an airline ticket. There's taxes when you pay your electric bill and your water bill. There's taxes on the things we pay taxes for. There's tolls to go over the bridges. There's income tax on the money that you make at your job. There's a thing called a capital gains tax on things that you buy and you sell for a profit. You have to pay taxes on that. There's property taxes for the property that you own. There's sales taxes that you pay when you go to the store and buy, like, let's say you buy a new couch. You have to pay a sales tax on that. Oh, there's even things called death taxes. People in America, anyway, get taxed when they die. All the money that they had accumulated in their whole entire life, it wasn't enough to pay income tax on it, property tax, Sales tax? No. They even charge people when they die. Who are these people that are charging all these taxes where they're the politicians? And for some reason, people are so stupid that they keep voting in politicians that increase the taxes on everything. And sometimes it gets so much that there'll be a politician that will come along and say, my whole entire reason that I'm running to become the president or the governor or the mayor or whatever is to lower the taxes. It's too much. We got to take it down. Well, in the time of the Ottoman Empire, and I'm coming back around full circle now, coming back around full circle. In the time of the Ottoman Empire, there was a sultan who was in charge, but there was nobody who was able to run for election on lower taxes. Nobody had that much sense, or they weren't able to. They just kept on raising the taxes, and it killed off the Silk Road. Listen, how does this play into the founding and the discovery of America by the Europeans? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and then I'm going to quit. There was this guy named Christopher Columbus, and he was interested in sailing and navigation, and he thought, instead of making the trip all the way around Africa in the sailing ship, how about I just sail west and come around the earth on the other side? A lot of people thought the earth was flat. He would just fall off the side. But he believed that the earth was round, and he believed that if he sailed west from Europe, that he would come all the way around the other side and run into China. And he would have a new trade route that would make it easier to do the trade. You wouldn't have to go all the way around Africa. That's how he discovered America. Somebody funded his voyage, and he didn't run into China. Instead, he ran into America. And that's how it was discovered by the Europeans. It's interesting that the high taxes of the Ottoman Empire is what caused someone to sail west and discover America. It was high taxes that prompted the discovery of America. It's interesting, high taxes are a huge problem, and they'll kill off whole businesses, but they also present an opportunity because people take their business elsewhere. If you can figure out where the businesses are going to be going to avoid the high taxes, you can make a tremendous amount of money and discover whole new industries. Okay, I'm finally done. And we'll do it again next time on English for Emerson. Bye-bye.